Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Bondalyn Jolly, and I'm the VP of Marketing at Elevate, as well as the Managing Partner at 365 Agency. And I'm so happy to have you all tuned in with us today as we discuss leading today's real estate brokerages, the path to recovery, recruitment, and retention. And before I go ahead and introduce our fabulous panelists, I just want to cover a couple of housekeeping items with you. First of all, yes, this will be recorded. I always get a lot of those questions, but we will be recording this. So if you miss anything, you want to review it, or you'd like to share this webinar on the backside with any of your professional friends and colleagues, we will be making it all available to you. So no worries there. A couple of other things. Throughout today's webinar, we're going to be putting up some poll questions. And so you'll see those poll questions appear on your screen. We highly encourage that you participate in those polls. It provides us just really fantastic information while we're reading the webinar so that we can shape our conversation more intimately around our audience. And it also gives us great statistical information that we get to share on the backside. We will be doing a Q&A session about the last 10 to 15 minutes of today's webinar. If you have questions for any of the panelists throughout the webinar, though, please feel free to put them in the questions panel in your GoToWebinar. We will be moderating those. And if you have any questions for the backside of things, we do have somebody on the backside, Aaron Gudikan, who is with us today, and he will be answering, questions as they come in, and then he'll be teeing me up with questions on the backside of this. I think that's about everything that we have to cover in housekeeping. So let me go ahead and introduce our panelists. Aaron, if you can flip the slide for me, please. I'm going to start with Prem Luthra. Prem is the president and CEO of Elevate. And Prem has been leading multiple webinars for us each month as we've been dealing with this COVID crisis and all of this just highly shifting market in 2020. And his insight today continues to be so incredibly valuable. I also have Frank Chimeno, who is our VP of Brokerage Development, and Mike Martella, our VP of Broker Sales. These two gentlemen are out on the streets, or of course of late, on the telephone and on Zoom and GoToMeeting, working with brokers, teams, agents, and organizations all across the United States. And so the two of them are really going to be able to provide a lot of interesting insight about what is happening inside of our industry from all different perspectives. So gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining me today. 2020 has been it's been a tough year, and I know we've seen a lot of really funny memes out on social media about how each month of the year is getting progressively, crazier. But Prem, you have been through these types of market shifts and things before. What is happening? What are your thoughts on the current state of where we are as we continue to deal with COVID, but we start to see people starting to emerge back into the workplace, back into social environments? What's your take on everything?
Well, Bondalyn, thanks for having us, and thanks for everyone that's joined. What we have heard, the phrase that we have heard countless times over the past 3 to 4 months is that we're living in unprecedented times. And that is absolutely true. Early in this pandemic, as I was doing a webinar with Bondalyn and Frank, I was trying to draw parallels to what we have experienced with the financial crisis of 2008 through 2010, and then going back to the recession that we lived through in 2000 through 2002 or 3. And while financially it kind of has a similar vibe, this time feels completely different. We're dealing with an international health scare, and it's sort of rattled people's psyche, and understandably so, because you catch this virus and people are dying, and it's hard to rationalize that. But as I try to take a look at our industry, which I believe is one of the greatest industries in this country, and as all of you well know, it represents 18 to 20% of gross domestic product. I try to look for the green shoots, like what is happening, what has happened, what is happening now, and where do we think it's going. And I'm pleased to say that, even though we're going through this crisis, life continues, and people are graduating college and getting their first job, or they're getting married and they're having babies, or they're retiring and they're downsizing. And so life continues to go on. And each of those events that I just sort of rattled off is a trigger for a real estate transaction or a real estate event. And so the good news is that as our country begins to open up, I believe that all of the pent-up demand that may have been in the first quarter, second quarter, is now sort of shifting itself to end of second quarter, early third quarter. I think that people are going to be transacting. In fact, people are transacting. I was having a conversation late last week with one of our MLS partners, one of the largest ones in the country, and they were telling me at the end of May, their pending under contract inventory, as well as their new listing inventory, was on par with the end of May of 2019. Now that's after a 30 to 45% drop off between March and April. So people are in the market. The market seems to be rebounding. There is undoubtedly a lot of pent up demand. There are supply and inventory sort of issues, as we all know, but that's nothing new or nothing caused by the pandemic. That was going on, all of 2019 and even before. But the good news is that we're seeing activity in our industry. As we're talking to our customers every single day, we're hearing that their time is stretched thin because they're serving consumers. They're assisting with the American dream. And, I think that, typically the search period, the research period that typically starts, the first week of January and kind of extends itself through, April, May timeframe, and then transaction activity starts to happen. I think it's been a shift of maybe 2, possibly 3 months. And I really expect to see, and I hope that all of you would agree. I think we've got a poll question to this extent. I think that we're going to see a lot of activity as we go throughout the summer months. So, I'm pleased to say that at least with this first phase of the pandemic, it appears to be, at least now in our rearview mirror, we're looking towards the future. And let's couple that with the fact that mortgage interest rates are at an all-time low. In fact, it was announced this morning that interest rates are, sub 3%. That's phenomenal. And so you couple that with, a pent-up demand. I think that you guys are heading into a relatively busy, which I hope you're heading into a relatively busy summer months.
And Frank, what are you seeing? I know that you spend a lot of time, in the trenches with our brokers across the United States. What is the overarching tone? Do you agree with and our clients and colleagues recognizing, this growth?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, what I'm seeing a lot of is what I would call maybe reevaluating priorities. We've got brokerages right now that are going back and reevaluating. Do we still need brick and mortar? Do we need as much brick and mortar as we used to have? Can we be more efficient? People have been working from home. Do they want to continue to work from home? If that's the case, what kind of technology do we need, to replace some of the efficiencies of everybody gathering under the same roof? And how do we do that? So we're seeing a lot of conversations around that, having a lot of conversations around that. Also, I would say recruiting has been really big through this time. We kind of, in that webinar we did at the beginning of this COVID shutdown stuff, I remember predicting that this was going to be a time for migration of real estate agents. And we've definitely seen that. We're also hearing real estate brokerages talking at length about, agents were sitting at home. They were reevaluating what they're doing. They're starting to kick tires. They're looking at other business models, other brokerages. Brokers are having to spend more time retaining the agents that they've had So I think this has been a very reflective time for a lot of brokerages. And now all of a sudden, it's like as fast as things shut down, it feels like things are just sort of taking off. And I'm dealing with a lot of brokerages that are evaluating kind of having high level discussions on what do we do from here? Where do we go? How do we increase company dollar? How do we retain a little more profit? And what areas can we cut without sacrificing service, both to our agents that we serve first and to the customers that our agents serve? So I'm hearing a lot of that. And look, sales solves everything. So as long as the market continues to roll, it makes it a lot easier for the brokerages to move through and maneuver through that. But there's a lot of internal conversation being taken place right now with the brokerages figuring out where they need to go.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and launch our first poll. So everybody that is with us, please participate. We want to know, has your brokerage grown and or have you contracted in growth of agents since the beginning of this year? So go ahead and give us a yes or no there. We're curious about all of that. And Frank, I think it's really interesting that you brought up, the idea that so many of our brokers have been reevaluating, right? I think this sort of collective pause that we had across, all of aspects of our life has really caused a lot of people to do a lot of self-reflection. And I'm curious, there's sort of a new norm that we're moving towards. And what I'm really hoping that we'll see is that, people will really embrace elements of change, whether that be technology, whether that be, the brick and mortar workplace, and really move to create, much better experiences from start to finish. And Mike, I know that you mentioned to me, just the importance of sort of getting back to basics and how all of the brokerages you've been working with are really just stepping backwards and, starting from the ground up again. So could you give us some color on that?
Yeah, absolutely. During this challenging time, I don't think anybody was really prepared for what happened, and it's really provided an opportunity for us to evaluate what we're doing as real estate brokerages and agents in the industry today, and really managing through this chaos. It's been a little chaotic, right? I remember being in Florida and this whole shutdown happened, and it felt like everybody around the world the world stopped. And so we were all caught off guard and we weren't prepared for something like this. And so it's really an opportunity for a lot of the brokerages that I'm talking to get back to basics, not to bring up a sports analogy, but it's like blocking and tackling right now. We've got to make sure that, we've got the right things in place, because this industry is a belly-to-belly business. It's all about building relationships. And who knows, if there's going to be another, situation like this. A lot of brokerages are asking themselves, are they prepared if this situation happens again? Because dealing with a lot of the brokerages I've talked to, I don't know that they were all prepared with having the technology for the agents to be able to manage in a new virtual environment. And so a lot of brokerages are saying, hey, let's take a step back. Let's look at some of the basics so that we can make sure that our agents are prepared for these situations to happen. And so what I'm seeing is that a lot of the brokerages that we've talked to are providing tools and technology for their agents, or trying to figure out ways that they can give the agents the tools so that they can manage in this environment. For example, agents need a place to send their consumers, their own website, to be able to engage and have insight into what some of their consumers are doing. And one of the key things that a lot of the brokerages I've talked to are looking to provide ways for agents to stay in contact through a CRM. And a lot of them haven't had those tools in place today. And it was a challenge for many of those agents and brokerages to stay in contact, given the fact that now the world changed a bit. And a lot of other brokerages are also looking at tools like, do they have the right social media strategies in place? Do they have tools like email marketing in place? And so, what's happening is that if you're not staying in contact with your clients, someone else is. And so this has really created an opportunity for folks to reevaluate what they're doing, look at some of the core services that they're offering their agents, and make sure that they've got the ability to provide those tools so they stay in contact in the event that we have to continue operating in a different world. So that's the thing that I continue to hear from brokers every single day, that they need to make sure that they have the right technology in place so that they don't get caught again in a situation like this.
Bondlin, it's interesting there. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Prem.
I was just going to say that, let's face it, all businesses, not just in the real estate vertical, but all businesses, the forecast that they had prepared coming into 2020, they've had to be completely reworked, right? All bets off. And, I know as a business owner, I know that our audience as business owners, we've spent a lot of time in front of spreadsheets over the past 2 to 3 months, looking at each line item, both on the revenue side as well as on the cost side. And, a point that Frank made about, particularly for a real estate broker owner, how do you maintain or, hopefully expand company dollar in challenging times, right? And so you've really got to evaluate your forecast. You really got to evaluate your cost structure. And to Mike's point, the interesting thing here is that I think brokers, because they've been forced to go through this exercise, because they're thinking about not only now, but what if something happens, in the late fall or winter, like people are predicting? How am I preparing myself right now? And they're saying, you know what? Do I really need to be doing business with 20, 30, 40 different vendors? Or is there a way for me to consolidate that into, fewer places, or eliminate some costs where I'm not seeing the appropriate ROI for my business or for my agents? Or is it really helping? Are these things that I'm investing good money on, are they helping me attract new agents? Are they helping me retain my existing agents? I know that our audience today, they're having these, they're scrubbing through their P&Ls, and they're having these kind of deep thinking sessions about what works and what doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Bonald, it's interesting. This is a great parallel. I heard something the other day on the news, and I was watching this little show, and they were talking about, it had nothing to do related with our economy, but it was talking about how people survive physical trauma. And it was really interesting because I thought, man, there's a parallel between surviving physical trauma and the economic trauma that our brokerages have been going through. And they said the first thing the body does naturally is it withdraws and protects its core. Everything pulls in to protect itself in order to survive before you can kind of get your wits about you and figure out if the fight or flight mechanism is going to kick in. And what we're seeing, and this is really a best practice for brokerages, the best brokerages, the ones that are coming out of this and already starting to hitting the ground running, they've taken this time to kind of pull in and figure out what are the core services that we provide. What is it that we do? What's core to our business? Forget about all the fluff and the shiny objects, but what are the 7 things that we must have in order to function in this environment, technologically? Look at that. And then how do we create continuity among those things so that it's efficient and it's effective for our agents? And that's when you can start to say, okay, we're going to pull in, we're going to protect things, we're going to kind of stop the bleeding, we're going to survive this moment, and we're going to focus on our core services that we offer both to you, our agents, and then you to your customers. And then we're going to start building on that. And that's what we're seeing. A lot of brokerages are trying to articulate or put into words what those actions are. And that's what we're seeing some of the most successful brokerages that are breaking out and flying. I've talked to brokers that are saying our business is exploding. Our agents are, that's what they've done. They've really consolidated and focused on their core services, and they're using that as a launch pad for this new normal, if that makes any sense.
That's a great analogy, Frank. And it's interesting because you've said this many times, that the average broker is using somewhere in the vicinity of 15 different technology vendors in order to actually provide those core services, to their agents. And that's actually that's our next survey question. So let me go ahead and tee that up really quick, because we want to know from everybody that is attending today, how many technology vendors are you currently working with? And you know what else I want to know too is if during the past several months, have you actually taken the time to consolidate any of these technology vendors, to evaluate and consolidate that? And you can let us know that in the chat section. Just give us some feedback, you know, in terms of, hey, I had X number of vendors that I was working with, but we took the time, you know, we cleaned house, we evaluated things, and now we're down to, you know, a fraction of that.
You know, Bondlin, there's two things on that, Bondlin, and I want to tee something up for Mike, because I know that I've had conversations with Mike and he's talked a lot about this. But with regard to the technology vendors that brokerages are using, it's not enough that, you know, that most of them are using somewhere between 12 and 15 different technology vendors. It's the amount of inefficiency that's involved in it, because those vendors aren't talking to each other, the systems aren't integrated. And so it's not just that they're spending time managing all these vendors, but they're actually spending time managing systems that are inefficient, that are actually costing them more time and lowering the capacity or the output potential of the agents. And I know, Mike, wanted to tee that up for you. You and I've talked a few times, but you've had some phenomenal conversations with brokerages that by consolidating, you know, that they've saved money, you know, not just time, but money. You want to, you know, expand on that a little bit about what you've run into with brokerages?
Sure. I mean, you both kind of touched on this. The average agent is managing anywhere between 8 to 10 different pieces of technology. The average brokerage is managing anywhere between 10 to 15. None of the technologies talk to one another. There's no, you know, there's different username and passwords. The data isn't being shared. If I have contacts in one system, I've got to upload them into another system. And so when you look at the average brokerage, you're looking at my CRM is with this company, my website is with that company, I've got email marketing with that company, I'm working with Zillow, Realtor.com, I've got the MLS, social media, all of these different pieces, and you just kind of get dizzy looking at this going, oh my God, how do I manage all of this? And so what a lot of brokerages have done is take a step back and say, okay, let's look at all of these things that are happening. I've got to, one, get people set up and trained. They've got to be productive. And the overall cost of all these multiple pieces of technology, you know, is a big mortgage payment, right? And so when you look at these tough times, you've got to evaluate what's working, what agents are utilizing, what am I spending, what's my return on investment. And what we found with a lot of brokerages is that by consolidating all of these services into one platform, one, it creates more production and productivity for the agent because they're not bouncing back and forth. The data is being shared. They're able to spend more time focused on engaging with these consumers. And from a learning curve perspective, think about this. They've got to learn 8 different systems when they can learn one system that's super intuitive, easy to use. And so it's also meant from a expense perspective that they're reducing costs, but then from a time and production perspective, the agents have more time to be able to focus on other things. So what we've done and working with a lot of brokerages is evaluate all the areas they're spending money on technology and provide them with one platform that will give them all of those core services, but then also save money so that they can allocate those savings in other areas of the business, or just operate on a much leaner, you know, budget. Because as you know, desperate times, this is a perfect time to take a look at what's being invested, what's being, what the production level is. And we've really had some great success with many of the brokerages because they've been able to not only reduce costs, but also increase productivity.
You know, and I was going to say, Prem says all the time, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And I think one of the things that I love what you do when you spend time talking with brokers and getting under the hood and just kind of helping them evaluate their systems and looking for gaps. I think one of the things is, aside from just saving them money potentially, but it's actually helping them find ways to increase the capacity of their agents. And that's what we hear a lot as we talk about brokers that want to grow or agents want to grow their business. And when you really break it down, what they're talking about is, I want to increase my capacity. You know, I put in X amount of hours a week or a month, and I'd like to squeeze more results out of that time I'm putting in. That's a capacity issue. So capacity is directly tied to efficiency, systems, processes. Are they smooth? You know, how many things can we get rid of? How can we clear the clutter so we can just focus on being efficient? You know, so I love what you're doing, Mike, with the brokers, and I hope you'll continue to do that, spending time with them and just looking under the hood.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a great process, and I think sometimes, you know, one of the great things about our value proposition is that I think a lot of folks don't know that there is a solution that's going to provide all of these services in one platform.
Right.
So you know, there are other tools in the industry that do pieces and parts, but you know, we offer this all of those key services in one solution. And for many, they've been able to, you know, not only save time, but save money.
Hey,
Well,
Mike,
Mike,
what
I
is
know
the
that.
thing?
We
Just
all
a
want
real
to
quick
talk.
question, because we
Yeah.
all want to talk. I'm sure our audience is interested in this. Mike, what's the single largest pain point that you're hearing from brokers as you're out in the field today,
Oh, wow.
right now?
I think that just recruiting and retaining agents right now. That's been the biggest challenge that a lot of brokerages are focused on. And I think you know, when you look at what's occurred, some of them that have lost agents have realized that, you know what, I don't have the tools available for my agents that maybe some other brokerages do. And look, a lot of brokerages are taking advantage of that and recruiting folks that are productive, that perform, that maybe the brokerage isn't providing these tools. So, you know, recruiting and retention obviously is always a challenge, but in these times, you know, a lot of brokerages are poaching other agents where those tools aren't being offered today.
Yeah, and that was actually pretty much the question that I was going to ask you, Mike, because, you know, we see so many you know, smaller independent brokerages that, you know, have been really horribly impacted by this pandemic because they haven't had the tools and things in place. And, you know, a lot of them, when we work with, we are seeing larger franchise organizations that have more comprehensive tool sets coming in and poaching. And so, you know, being able to bring a solution like, you know, Elevate in to actually help with the recruitment and the retention component, I know has been extremely valuable for our client base.
Yeah,
Well,
you nailed
it. Something to that, because what I was going to tell you is I don't think, see, I look at it, I think of it a little differently, Prem and Mike, is that I don't think recruiting and retention is the number one pain point. I think recruiting and retention is actually the solution to the number one pain point. Because I think the number one pain point for brokers right now is shrinking margins. I think that's the pain point, shrinking margins. So to combat shrinking margins, well, you better be able to recruit agents and you better be able to retain the ones that you've already put the time and energy into. And that's where you start getting into these efficiency models as well. How can I start consolidating systems and become more efficient or save some money here? Because I've got so much competition. There's so much pressure on the margin shrinking that I feel like that's the number one pain point, Prem. And I'd love to know. I wish we would have set that up as a poll, Bondlin, is what's your number one pain point? But maybe we can do a follow-up survey with the folks. But I would say it's shrinking margins.
Yeah, look, I think there are other folks who are this industry. I think as a result of this will shrink, right? Some people will get out of the business, and other folks will go and retire because they're afraid of what's going to happen. I mean, there's no cure for this disease here, or there's no cure for COVID, and so look, profitability is always going to be something that brokerages are challenged by. But getting the right folks on board is going to ultimately be a part of driving more profitability as well. So, you know, they're probably hand in hand, Frank, but we can always debate that those two things. And maybe some of the other, some of our listeners may be able to add some, when we have our questions, some information to share with us based on what they're seeing in their business.
I just said, because here's the reality to a brokerage. I mean, it's been said often, and I kind of have a tendency to agree with this. real estate brokers or brokerages are not even necessarily in the real estate business. They're in the real estate agent recruiting and retention business, because that is the solution to all of their problems. Recruit more agents, recruit more of the agents you want. That's going to solve a lot of your problems. And so, I mean, that's really important, Bondlin, as we look at our platform and, with the recruiting module and everything that's in it, designed to help brokerages recruit agents in a more effective way, and build relationships and build rapport, because we know that agent recruiting is not a one-call close type thing. You've got to build relationships. And we know the statistics. We know that agents are changing brokerages every 4 to 6 years. And that's just kind of an undeniable stat. A lot of people don't talk about it. They don't like talking about it, but that's a fact according to the data. And I'd be curious to know, what brokerages recruiting goals are. I don't know if we've got a poll question for that. I know we talked about it, but
yeah, we sure do.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out what brokerages, what are your recruiting goals, the growth goals for the rest of 2020. Are you expecting or hoping to stay flat, or you want to grow? Because I think that's going to be, based on what the broker wants to accomplish, what the expected outcome is. I think that's where you start, and then you start backing into, okay, now what do we need in order to accomplish that? What systems do we need in place? What technology do we need to provide? Maybe what tweaks to our business model do we need to implement? And what do we do to be competitive in the marketplace? I think that's an important question to ask. And from all your years working with brokers and all that, I mean, I'm assuming, answering these questions about recruiting goals seems to be would you agree that or disagree? Is that sort of the skeleton for how you frame your business plan?
I mean, listen, the 25 plus years I've been in this industry, it's always been the trifecta as you're sort of contemplating successful brokerages from not successful brokerages. And it's all about recruit, train, retain agents, right? You're spot on with respect to, a broker owner that is running a business. He or she may not be conducting real estate transactions or facilitating real estate transactions themselves. I know that some broker owners do that. The vast majority don't. They're running a business, and the name of their game is attract high talent, train them so that they can improve their performance and keep them around. And, the way that you do that, the way it's been done forever is, certainly there are financial sort of incentives that you can draw people over, but, realtors are people, as somebody said earlier in this webinar, and so are broker owners. And so the brokers that build a relationship with their agents, provide them with tools and services to help them become more successful. Those are the most successful brokerages that I've witnessed, and I think you guys would sort of echo that.
Right. I talked with a broker 2 days ago, and I was asking him what the secret to his success was, because he's just a recruiting machine, and he does things a little bit out of the box. And I said, what's your secret? If there's one secret, he said, there is one secret. He said, it's really simple, and I apply it to everything. He said, real estate agents are like me. There are tasks I do not want to do, but they're critically important to my job. But if I can get someone else to do them or something else to do those so I don't have to, I'm happier. If I'm happier, I'm more productive. He said, so I look at real estate agents and I try to put the technology tools in place to take off of the shoulders of the agents the tasks that they have to do, should do, know they need to do, but don't really want to do. Why don't they want to do them? Because they want to be out shaking babies and kissing hands, as I jokingly say. But the idea is, he nailed it. He nailed it. He said, I look at technology as how can I buy, purchase, build technology that takes the work off the agents that the agents don't want to do, but they have to do because it's critical to their business. If I can remove that burden, they want to hang out with me because I make their life better. I thought he nailed it.
So Frank and Mike, just a question, and I'm sure our audience is wondering this as well, or experiencing it. There are literally thousands of vendors in our industry that are all trying to contact our audience, the people on this webinar, the people that you're talking to, and they're getting inundated with emails and phone calls and text messages. And how does a broker owner today kind of separate the wheat from the chaff? How do they make the right decision? Like, how is that done?
Well, I think from my perspective, you've got to feel like the vendor is a partner, right? That they understand your business, that they're sitting on the other side of the table. They know that vendors like us know how they make money. They know how they're going to recruit more agents, right? They know their business model. These are very key, important pieces that a lot of that could create a lot of challenges, right? I mean, I've worked with a brokerage that they had implemented a system in place, and they partnered with a different technology company, and the leads that were coming off the website that the agents were driving, they had their own website, they were driving them to the brokerage site. And the agents were under the impression that those leads would be going back to those agents who essentially referred the consumer to the site. But the challenge was that vendor didn't have the technology, the capacity to be able to route leads in a certain way. So those leads those consumers that were being sent over to the website were now being given to other agents in the office. And so these consumers were being routed from leads that they were sending, or consumers they were sending to the website, and they were going to other agents in the office. And so their marketing dollars that they were investing were actually benefiting other agents. So, when you partner with the right vendor, it's extremely important to understand the business model. Right? Are you a 100% company? Are you a traditional company? Those things are critical because I think most folks don't understand that the technology doesn't need to be an expense. It can be a tool that creates a revenue stream within the brokerage. So understanding how they operate is critically important. Understanding, that they understand the process, that the vendor understands the process of what they want to accomplish, and knowing that the technology is capable of doing those things. And that's why it's important to really dig under the hood, get dug into their processes, understand how things work, because certain technology won't do those things. And you don't want to find out later down the road that you partnered with a vendor that cannot fulfill the culture of your company.
Yeah.
So
Mike,
let's go ahead and I'm going to, Frank, you can keep the conversation going, but we've got a couple of poll questions because we do want to find out what type of business models our audience today are running. And so I'm going to release that question. And then I have another question I'm going to release right after that, which is, question regarding if you're currently monetizing your technology offerings within your office to your agents. So Frank, you keep going, and everybody please participate in this poll.
Yeah, so, as Mike said, I mean, one of the things that, Mike and I kind of grin about is, we've been in this industry a long time, and we have a lot of relationships, and we've kind of been there and done that, and we're still learning every day. But what we really enjoy is when we get a chance to spend time with potential clients or with our existing clients. Is we know this. We know that there are tons of vendors. There's tons of great technology in the industry. There's also tons of really bad technology in the industry, to be candid. But the technology is typically only as good as the people that are behind it and pushing the buttons and running it. Thankfully, and proud to say, like our company has a phenomenal customer service record. Phenomenal customer support, working with customers. But I've worked with companies that didn't. And so, understanding that as a broker, especially if you're an owner operator still in the business, it's like you better not just be comfortable and I guess proficient with your technology, but you better hope that the people involved, the human beings involved in that organization, really understand you and really understand where you're coming from. Because on Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when something breaks, it's those people that you're going to rely on that actually care about your business, that are going to help you. And that's really important, and understanding things like this poll question. understanding how do you monetize, the services that you provide to your real estate agents. I can't tell you how many times we've gone, Mike, you and I, we've kind of joked about it. It's sad, but we've had some competing systems where they were talking to our customer and they never took the time to find out, how does this broker even make money, or pay for the technology tools? And if you don't understand that, how could you provide a solution? If I don't understand from a brokerage how they monetize their technology tools or how their business model operates, what business challenge can I actually solve for? And so I think it's really important as a broker that you make sure your vendor understands these things. And if they're not asking these questions, I would bring them up and make them deal with these questions, because if they do not connect with you on this level, on these items, they're probably not going to be a great partner for you long term, no matter how much you think of their technology.
Yeah, it's funny. I was speaking with a brokerage the other day, and I brought up the thought of monetizing the technology, and he was just like, "What do you mean?" And I walked him through the process of, look, we've got technology that we can essentially partner with you on and provide almost like an a la carte menu to people that want to either have social media or have IDX in a CRM or have lead generation. And we offer great value to those customers, and they can provide these tools to their agents at reduced costs based off of what we sell them for, turn it around, make a little bit of profit off of that, give it to the agent at a cost less than what they could get it for. And then now they're utilizing these tools to either subsidize the technology or take that subsidy and invest it into other pieces of technology. So there's a lot of ways to be able to use this to monetize, to profit off of the technology, so that it's not coming out of your pocket wholly. Plus, there's the whole concept of, look, agents, when they have skin in the game, they value it more. So there's a great opportunity to take the technology that you're utilizing, monetize it, and not only help your agents, but utilize that for other tools within the brokerage.
Yeah, I don't believe, I really have a sound philosophy. I don't believe, and I had a small brokerage, I don't believe that any technological tool should be an end-all be-all bottom line expense in the budget. There is always an opportunity to have that technology tool pay for itself or become a profit center. If it is implemented, laid out, strategized correctly, it should never be treated or considered as a bottom line expense. It just shouldn't be. And there's no need for it. We can help brokerages understand how you can get a little something back for that technology tool and service you're providing.
Yeah, I'm often surprised when I hear brokerages that provide leads at the cost of the brokerage, and they're not even monetizing the lead. So
Right.
I think lead generation is an opportunity to monetize. The technology that you're offering is an opportunity to monetize these tools. So I mean, I think there's really a great opportunity, and again, that comes down to understanding the business partner, the vendor that you're working with, and really coming up with some great creative ways to ensure that you're not covering all of the financial expenses in this. And a lot of companies that we work with have some great ways to monetize the platform and technology.
We really do, and I think that's one of the best advantages, Bondlin, that we've got is Mike and I get to look like the geniuses. I mean, Mike and I spend a lot of time, and Prem, we talk to you about how when we get together, we just like to spitball ideas, and we're always trying to create something, unique. But what makes Mike and I look and sound really smart is the fact that we get to talk with some of the best brokerages in the country, and they share ideas with us. And so when a brokerage that grew from one office to now 15 offices and 500 agents is telling us some of the things they did along the way, and we're able to go back and share that. I think of some of the clients we just brought on board, Mike, in Southeast Florida, where they were small independent, and we shared some of these ideas with them, and they were just like, that's awesome. I never thought of that. I'm like, well, yeah, neither did I, but it was a broker who did this 15 years ago. We get to share the best practices. And I think, again, I go back to make sure your partner can do that for you. If your partner can't bring that value to the table, and help elevate your game, no pun intended, then find another partner.
Well, Frank and Mike, I mean, I know that you guys do these wonderful one-on-one consultations with brokers all across the United States. And so in the chat window, I actually just put in a link. It is boss.tryelevate.com. Everybody should be able to see it. If you want to schedule a one-on-one consultation with Frank and Mike, just go to that landing page, boss.tryelevate.com, and you can fill out a quick little form there, and Mike and Frank will reach out to you this afternoon. I mean, these guys are such a wealth of knowledge. And I do want to shift focus for a few minutes here. We are starting to run out of time. We've got a lot of questions that are coming in, gentlemen. And there was an interesting statistic that actually Eric Pointer shared, or an interesting piece of information that he shared, and I want to lob this out and pose this to Prem. Eric said industry experts are expecting an increase in the number of agents in the real estate market because there's such a huge number of unemployed individuals, and the real estate market is a fairly stable market. Prem, what are your thoughts on that? And for all of the people, we've got a lot of people out there expressing that recruitment and retention right now is a big challenge to them. Well, I'm not surprised to see that coming in. How do you think that brokers are going to be able to leverage, their recruitment strategies against this large unemployment pool?
Yeah, I think so. The adage for years in our industry has been a third in, third out per year. There's a high level of churn or attrition that happens with our professional base, whether it's people that enter the space with bright eyes and realize it's not as easy as they thought it was going to be, or if it's the aging realtor population that are retiring or getting out of the business or turning over their business to their children. I personally can't see, right before we went into this crisis, we were at 1.4 million realtors as reported by NAR. I don't really see that number growing much larger than that. In fact, I probably have an opposite opinion in that I think we're going to see some contraction because, not only, the broker owners that are on this call, are they going through margin compression, in their business, in today's, challenging environment, unless you are investing in your business to build your pipelines 2, 3, 4 months out, you're going to be struggling to, facilitate transactions on behalf of your clients. And so I personally see a contraction in our realtor population over the next 12 to 18 months. So that's point one. The second point is, Frank and Mike have been talking a lot about technology, and the question I asked is how does a broker owner today turn down the noise of all these vendors that are trying to get in touch with them? It must be overwhelming. I'm empathetic for that, but I think and so they select a vendor or they select a partner. I think Mike made a great point around that. But now you've got these tools that you want to offer your agent population. Now it's all about adoption, right? And historically, brokers have struggled to get beyond 10% adoption of things that they're investing on behalf of, of their agents. I think what, kind of the potential silver lining here in what's happened over the past 3 to 4 months is that technology hasn't been a nice to have, it's been a need to have. Right? People have been sitting in their homes trying to interact with their clients or trying to interact with people that are raising their hands on the internet saying, I might be interested in 123 Main Street, to the extent that they want to go view properties, virtual viewings, right? So technology has been a need to have over the past 3 to 4 months. And I think that what the end result of that, and I think hopefully the good news for our audience is that adoption is going to solve for itself, because I don't see agents going back to the old way of doing things. I think they're going to continue doing this. I think virtual showings is here to stay. Before we entered this pandemic, agent safety was a big topic. It's even more of a big topic right now, right? And so I think it's going to be technology that's going to help enable that. And so I really think if you can point to any potential silver lining in the challenges we've gone through over the past 3 to 4 months, I think it has been a catalyst for the adoption of technology. And I don't see that going away anytime soon.
Hey, Prem, I heard an agent tell me the other day, they said, yeah, we're never going to get rid of these virtual showings. And I'll tell you how we're going to use them. If you're unwilling as a buyer to go get pre-qualified or do the things I need you to do, I'll virtually show you homes, but I'm not driving you around in the car and wasting time and money and gas. I'm going to reserve that time for the people that go and get pre-approval letters and have all their ducks in a row. And I'm going to focus on the highest and best use of my time, but I'm happy to use virtual for other things. So there is going to be a massive shift in how real estate agents interact with their customer and to a brokerage. How you leverage and provide the tools, systems, and processes is going to be the difference in how many agents want to join your brokerage or leave your brokerage.
It's interesting, gentlemen, because I'm seeing a lot of people who are making comments about, hey, brick and mortar, the concept, we're putting that to the wayside. That is no longer, the scenario. And so I like seeing, a lot of people embracing technology moving forward, because as we say goodbye to that brick and mortar, virtual meetings, virtual showings, like Tom said, all of this is really, is becoming more and more of the norm. And I agree with you guys that we're not going to see any of this go away. And so for everybody who is out there, let us know, give us a comment, let us know, what technology have you adopted over maybe the past 3 months? It might be new to you, or maybe something that you utilize but have really spiraled up and will continue to utilize in completely new and innovative ways moving forward. So we'd love to have some comments from you. Also, Erin, if you could go ahead and pull up, we've got a few minutes left. We've got some questions we're going to entertain, but I do want to take a moment and just point out a couple of special offers that we have for our audience today. Brokers, as I mentioned, if you want to schedule a confidential one-on-one with Mike and Frank to really do a deep dive into the technology and a full gap and financial analysis across your brokerage, just go to boss.tryelevate.com and you can schedule a time with those gentlemen. Any agents that are attending with us today, if you would like to explore Elevate and everything that we do in terms of online marketing and lead generation, just go to tryelevate.com/get-started, or you can just go to tryelevate.com and click request a demo, and you can schedule some time with our agent success team. And then for everybody, I invite you to visit 365.agency. We provide daily marketing tips direct to your inbox every single day, and it is just a wealth of information that's delivered to you every single morning. So please go and register for that. It is a free service. We do it as a courtesy. Actually, every single one of these offers is just, our objective as a company is to provide value to our real estate community. And we obviously hope that you will work with us at Elevate. But if you don't, we have a wonderful wealth of knowledge and information for you to tap into, and we are happy to share what we can. So gentlemen, as we sort of approach our last few minutes, I just want to lob this question out there and for you for your closing thoughts and statements. But, what does the future of real estate look like in 3 to 5 years? And I know it's one of those open, but, what do you think is the role of the broker, moving forward, and the role of that relationship with the, between the agent and the broker as we move into perhaps, a continuation of more of a virtual office environment? So Mike, I'm going to start with you.
Well, as I stated earlier, I think the relationship is critically important. Managing through the chaos, as I mentioned, and getting back to basics. It's important for the brokerage to provide these tools for their agents to be able to manage the business. As we've seen, crisis creates opportunity, but we all have an opportunity to kind of step back, analyze what we have to offer, reevaluate, pivot, and make changes. And so I think that the relationship between the broker and agent is still going to be critical, but the tools that they offer is going to be the differentiating factor moving forward. And we're seeing that all from a lot of these brokerages that we've talked to. But again, getting back to basics, blocking and tackling, managing through the chaos, and not chasing that shiny new tool and technology. That's the key.
Frank.
Boy, see, next 3 to 5 years, what are the big differences or what's coming? I think number one, more and more brokerages are going to recognize that that the agents don't work for them; they work for the agents. I think that's been talked about before, but I think you're going to see that get applied more and more. I think more brokers are going to take an active role in becoming more of big partner and less of big brother. And that's going to be critically important because, again, it all comes down to, as an agent, where do I want to hang my license? Well, I want to hang my license with the broker that's going to clear the most hurdles, fill in the most potholes, and provide me with the most opportunities to improve my quality of life. That's the broker I want to partner with. So more brokerages are going to get into that and focus on that, in the next 3 to 5 years. There's no doubt in my mind. I think that's where it's going. So it's I don't think there's going to be a tremendous change to how real estate is done per se, but I think there's going to be a tremendous difference in the approach between the relationship of the brokerage and its agents.
Well said. And Prem, how about you, sir?
I'll kind of start the response to that question by talking about the consumer. I think one thing that will not change in our lifetime is that purchasing a home for most Americans is still the single largest financial investment they'll ever make. And I think that as talented and professional as real estate, as realtors are, they're also the psychologist that's hand-holding people through that process. And I fundamentally don't see that changing. Further, we are a technology-enabled society now. Put aside our industry, we're a technology-enabled society. And I believe that, and we've talked about this for a while, how inefficient the real estate transactional process is. And there's no denying that. I believe that consumers are going to want to have more visibility and transparency into each sort of stage of a real estate transaction. And the only way, given the fact that you've got a lot of different, affiliated services involved using different things, the only way that I see the consumer getting more transparency into the transaction is by the use of technology. Now you flip it on the other side of the table with the broker and the real estate professional. I completely agree with Mike and with Frank. I think a broker is in the business of providing an environment for agents to thrive. And that's
right.
What's going to allow them to recruit people and retain people. And I think, talking about technology for technology's sake is almost missing the point. Brokers are going to provide these tools and services to their agents to make them more successful. The ones that choose not to adopt that, the broker should have no worry about them walking down the street to the broker down the street, right? So they're really looking to build that core group and to grow that core group of realtors that work within their office, that adopt what they bring to them, because they're bringing it to them for them to become more efficient. And we've talked a lot about sort of technology and sort of the transition. I believe that, the topic around adoption of, agents' use of technology in the brokerage, that's not going to be a conversation we're going to have in 5 years, because our industry is going to, the catalyst is happening. It's happening. What would have happened over 5 to 10 years is now happening over a couple of years due to this pandemic. And so I think that the use of technology, the adoption of technology within a brokerage is not even a conversation we're going to continue to have. I think we're going to be focused on conversations on how to provide the realtors, the brokers, and therefore the realtors, the ability to create more transparency and less friction within the real estate transaction.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that's fantastic, gentlemen. And we're at the hour mark. So everyone, I really appreciate you joining us today. I know that a lot of you have posted questions that we have been unable to get to. but have no worries. We will go through all of those questions, and Mike, Prem, Frank, and myself will take the time to respond to every single one of you. Like I said, please take advantage of these offers to connect with Mike and Frank, to connect with our success team. We just have a wonderful wealth of knowledge to share. And I would like to thank each of the panelists for joining me today. You guys are always just such a pleasure to talk to. I can hardly wait until we're all together in the same room again.
We've got to thank the moderator.
That's right.
Thank you.
You are welcome. You couldn't do it without me, but no. Thank you all so very much. And watch, we will be sending out an email on the back side of this with a link to the recording and all of the poll results from today. So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.